I got this BFVSR in from Savage for testing, and I thought this was a great chance to show you some of the things that I do when I get a brand new rifle like this. But also I wanted to show you about this. This is the most indispensable tool that I have for dealing with firearms. It's the Wheeler Fat Wrench, and that's what's coming up next on Twang and Bang. The Savage BFVSR comes with this Picatinny scope base already mounted onto the rifle. The thing is, I've learned the hard way not to trust assembly of this super critical part. If this comes loose after you sight in, you're not just going to have sighting problems that you can't fix with the dials. You're going to have to take your scope all the way off to get back into the mounting screws and torque them properly. So I do that from the start. I'm going to pull this all the way off, clean all the threads and everything, reinstall it with blue Loctite and proper torque specifications, which is why I've got that Wheeler Fat Wrench. Every fastener on a firearm has a proper torque spec, and you're going to get the best results if you use proper torque specs. Ah! Well, this is why I do this myself. This is why I check. This was super tight. These two were on the loose side. This one was so tight, I actually stripped it trying to get it out. And this is the exact correct size hex key. And it fit in there nice and snug, but as soon as I started turning, because these are actually pretty soft metal, stripped right out. I could send this whole rifle back to Savage. They will take care of me, no problem. But I'm just going to run with it. I don't think this is going to go anywhere at all. I'm going to properly torque these three, and that should take care of it. This one, even if this one came loose later, that's not going to matter. This is just a rimfire. That's not the lesson in torque that I was expecting to give. I was fully expecting to be giving a lesson on how things are under-torqued from the factory. But that's clearly over-torqued, and that does happen as well. There is such a thing as too much torque. And when somebody can't remove the fastener, I might not want this rail on there. I might want a different rail, one that has built-in elevation. If I was going to shoot for long distances, I might do that. I might want standard scope bases on there. I should have the option of taking this off. So that was clearly over-torqued. Now we're going to torque this to the correct specs. Most scope bases, 20 to 25 inch-pounds is what you want. These two were way over 25 inch-pounds, so obviously they can take it. That's what I'm going to stick with, 25 inch-pounds. And also, ordinarily, what I would be doing at this point with a base like this is I would be holding it forward, but this isn't moving at all. The reason I hold it forward is the rifle will recoil underneath this, and it puts forward pressure as the inertia holds the scope and the mount still. It puts forward pressure on the mount, and if you already take that slack out, then you're less likely to have accuracy problems later. 1, 2, 3. These are already pre-stretched, but I do this anyway as a habit. Torque it once, back off, 2, 3, last one. Torque it once, twice, 3 times. Torquing 3 times, you'll see some manufacturers actually specifying that. It's not a bad habit to be in. What it can do is pre-stretched threads. It's not an issue with these because they were already torqued in there and pre-stretched, but it also helps to distribute your thread locker in the threads at the deepest point. So torquing it, untorquing it 3 times is not a bad habit to have. This is a precision rifle, and part of that precision is repeatability. Part of the repeatability is being able to take the stock off of the action and put it back on and know that the action bolts are torqued the same. If they're not torqued the same, you're going to have a wild fluctuation in point of impact. If you torque them the same, your point of impact should still remain pretty close. I did find that these were a little bit under their specification. I tested them out at 15 inch-pounds according to this Wheeler fat wrench, and I was able to tighten these both about 1/8 of a turn, which is more than 0. So according to this fat wrench, these were under torqued. But nonetheless, I was going to loosen them anyway, and you saw I tapped the buttstock on the table while I was pushing down on the action to make sure that the action is seated fully rearward in the stock, because though this is a rimfire, this doesn't matter so much for this. A centerfire rifle, it's going to recoil into the stock this way. You want to take that play out before you torque down the action bolts, and that's what I'm going to do. 15 inch-pounds. You don't use any thread locker on action bolts, not these anyway. 1, 2, 3. And also, I start with the rear bolt and then go to the front bolt. That's part of the repeatability. 2, 3. You're going to want to do that the same time, the same way each time. Okay, so now we have the basic rifle properly torqued. We have the base properly torqued. We have the action bolts properly torqued. We need to mount this optic. I actually have it out of the box already. Bushnell sent their 6 to 18 side focus rifle scope, which is a really cool match to this, and we're going to mount this, which also includes proper torque specifications. I'm going to use these Weaver quad lock rings for this application. They're like 16 bucks or whatever. Not very expensive. They're going to be fine for this application, but you can see there's a lot of play in these slots. So the first thing that I'm going to do is slide these all the way forward in the slots, just like I was going to do for this base, though it's locked down. It's not such a big deal for a rimfire like this, but a centerfire rifle, again, you got the rifle recoiling this way. You got the inertia of the scope sitting here in the rings, wanting to stay still, so it's going to be slamming forward. We want to take that play out ahead of time, and then we won't have that play working against us in our accuracy after we already get this thing zeroed. So as I torque these down to specification, I'm going to be pushing them slightly forward. Wheeler does include this nice big screwdriver head to fit tensioning screws like this, but of course I am going to use Loctite. I'm going to get the scope out of the way so I don't drip Loctite onto it. That would be bad. I am going to torque these to 30 inch-pounds. So you have this slid all the way forward. 2, 3. And there's a case where doing this 3 times, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera, but I was actually able to get this farther each of those 3 times. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to repeat this up here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, so now the lower halves are attached to the base, Loctited and properly torqued. Now it's time to mount the scope itself. This isn't flat enough for me to use my Arasaka Defense scope leveling kit. I wish, because it makes it super easy, but we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to level this rifle in this P3 Ultimate Gun Vise, lock it down, and then I'm going to use a level on the top turret as I'm tightening down the ring screws. And that should get us everything that we need as far as aligning the reticle. We're going to check it on a plumb line later, but let's get it started this way. Got this level on the base, looks pretty level. It's probably going to move as I tighten this down. That doesn't matter too much. Just trying to get it close. Okay, so now what I need to do, the cool thing, I should slide this forward so you can see, is it's got the CTK Precision Gun Vise has adjusters. Going to get that dialed in. Good. And take it off, put it back on just to make sure. Okay. And this isn't going to go anywhere. That's nice and steady. Again, oop, this has a funky base. I have to make sure it's lined up. All right. Now we're going to put the scope on. Oh, I forgot to mention that I already checked the eye relief, and I spaced the lower halves where I needed them to be for the eye relief that I wanted. I also checked the clearance. The bolt clears the zoom dial, as well as the rear of the rail clears the zoom dial, or the other way around. And so I already know this is where I want these to be. Let's get the upper halves in place. These quad rails, these quad lock rings have two straps, two top halves for each lower half. I'm going to distribute my blue Loctite ahead of time. Just going to get these in place. Okay, here comes the part I hate about mounting scopes, is keeping this level while tightening these rings, keeping everything even. Okay, perfect. All right. Ordinarily used an X pattern, but because these are individual top halves, you don't do that with these. I'm going to torque these to 20 inch-pounds. And this is what I hate about this system. After I finish torquing that down, it's not level anymore. So I need to back this off. Okay, that took 3 tries, but I finally got it right in between. I'm going to be double checking this with a plumb line outside, but I got one set of rings already torqued down. So I don't need to worry about that anymore. This is just a matter of getting each ring tensioned evenly on both sides before I get the final torque setting, because this one is going to hold it from rotating. And there we go. That is all done with the Wheeler fat wrench. Every bit of that. It would be a completely different result if I didn't use this every time that I put rifles together like this, because I wouldn't be torquing them to the precise spec. I wouldn't be able to repeat it. You can over tighten scope rings. That runs the risk of crushing the scope tube. You can over tighten these rings, which can strip them. You can over tighten the base screws, which we've seen already done. You want to make sure that all of the torque is the same, everything's balanced, and that you can repeat it if you take this apart and put it back together again, so that you get as much repeatability as you can. And that's all made possible by the fat wrench. This is something that I picked up from a lot of the top shooters in the precision competition shooting world. They use this. They're not using something any fancier than this when they're putting their guns together after taking them apart. And it's one of the tools that I think every guy who's got a gun should have in his toolkit. You can see links on where to buy it in the video description. I've got a couple different options for you. Just click around and see where the best price is. Be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. You can see the links right here. And be sure to click right here to subscribe so you can catch my next videos on bows, guns, and other cool stuff. I really appreciate you watching Twang and Bang, and I hope to see you next time.